Hey, Dina here. Well, I did a Red Dwarf video a while back where I went on a fun little tangent about a very short-lived show that I loved called Alien Nation, and then I teased wanting to do a vlog series on it. I wish I had time now to do a series of videos on Alien Nation, cause I'd do it. I'll talk about Alien Nation all frickin' day if you let me. Well, as it turns out, I have time now. So let's talk about this weird but amazing little show called Alien Nation that basically nobody watched and was canceled after the first season. But first I want to give a little background on it because it comes from kind of an interesting place. See, the show was developed by Kenneth Johnson. If that name sounds familiar, it's probably because he was behind a lot of classic sci-fi TV shows like The $6 Million Man, The Bionic Woman, and The Incredible Hulk. But more importantly, he was the creator of the first V miniseries. Ideally, I wanted to cover V first because it came first, but since it's a series of movies, it'll end up being a series of film dens, and who knows how long that'll take. Alien Nation is just easier to cover, so it just makes sense to get it out of the way first. But not only did both of these shows have the same showrunner, they have similar themes. V is about the Holocaust, but with aliens. Aliens who look like us come to Earth under the guise of forming an alliance and sharing our resources in return for giving us a cure for cancer and other diseases. It turns out that they are actually lizard people who want to enslave us. Yeah, that's technically a spoiler, but who doesn't know that about V by now? The Nazi analogy is not even close to subtle, but honestly, I love it. It elevates this show above the pulpy sci-fi show that takes a lot of inspiration from Star Wars that it otherwise could have been. It's very heavy, is what I'm saying. Also, still surprisingly relevant. In case there was any doubt, I definitely recommend V for the record. But where V was about the Holocaust, Alien Nation was about, well, race relations in America, specifically the Civil Rights Movement. But there's still one more thing I need to talk about before I get to the show itself. The Alien Nation franchise started in 1988 as a theatrical movie. It takes place a few years after aliens, called newcomers, have landed and integrated into society.
As we soon learned, we're a genetically engineered race adapted for hard labor in almost any environmental condition.
Oh hey, it's Dr. Silberman from Terminator 2. I just missed having an excuse to use that clip. One of the main characters, Detective Matt Sykes, played in the movie by James Caan.
I wonder if the plumbing's the same. Yeah, it is. What?
Has a partner and best friend, Bill Tuggle.
Hey, what's happening?
Hi there, sir. How are you? You mind stepping out here for a second?
Good idea getting the driver out of the car first, because check out this gun that shoots all the way through this car.
It shoots through schools.
Damn, reminds me a little of that scene from Child's Play. But yeah, Tuggle is shot to death by a newcomer gang, resulting in Matt having a problem with newcomers. Shortly after that, he meets the newcomer who will eventually become his partner.
Are you all right?
Here's a fun little running gag that comes up in both the movie and the series.
What was your real name again?
Lenza Montoya.
It means the English name they gave you in quarantine.
Oh, Albert Einstein. Perfect.
When the newcomers were processed, they were given more human-sounding names to fit in better. But the guys doing that either got lazy sometimes or were just running out of ideas, so you get a lot of newcomer characters named, well, Sam Francisco, for example.
San Francisco? I'm not going to introduce you to people as San Francisco. I think I'll call you George. George?
Okay.
Okay.
So Matt just renames him George. Here's a fun fact. Originally, George was going to be named after George Jetson, but Hanna-Barbera wouldn't allow it, so they went with Sam Francisco. Mandy Patinkin did not like that. He was really married to the idea of his character being named George Jetson. I wonder if that's why they had Matt decide to call him George. Maybe it was kind of a consolation prize, so he could, like, pretend he was George Jetson.
Detective Sergeant Sykes. Detective Francisco.
We have met.
Yeah, right. We are not pals. We're not getting married. We're not going to take long moonlight walks together, okay? And don't call me Sergeant. Call me Sykes or Matt if you got to, okay?
Anyway, you'd think that Matt would be partnered with George against his will because that's how these buddy cop stories usually go, but he actually chooses to be George's partner.
Why'd you do it? Agree to work with me. You don't like me. You don't like any of them. And yet you make yourself an outcast by making me your partner.
My partner is dead. He's dead because one of you bastards killed him. You're gonna help me find that ugly slag son of a bitch. You understand me?
He doesn't explain it too well, but I think the idea is that he thinks it'd be poetic justice if the newcomers who killed his partner were defeated by another newcomer. So there's your setup. A racist cop is partnered with someone of that race.
A nice signal, dickhead!
And he's forced to deal with his issues, and they end up bonding over their case. This one involves a narcotic drug that came from the newcomer slave ship that can make a newcomer super strong if they take a lot of it. There's a great scene about halfway through where they have a few drinks and end up bonding. George talks about his wife Susan and their 4-year-old son Richard.
We named him after the former President Richard Nixon.
Me, I tell people I named him after the actor Richard Burton. Just take my word for it.
Matt tells a dirty joke that falls flat.
So then the doctor says, if this is my thermometer, where's my pen? See, if the doctor has the thermometer in his hand, where is the pen then? Where?
In the other man's rectum.
Yeah, it's sticking up his ass!
But yeah, George is this gentle, good-natured guy, and Matt just couldn't keep hating him, however much he may have wanted to.
You humans are very curious to us. You invite us to live among you in an atmosphere of equality that we've never known before. I hope you understand how special your world is, how unique a people you humans are. Which is why it is all the more painful and confusing to us that so few of you seem capable of living up to the ideals you set for yourselves.
Meanwhile, it's revealed that newcomers need to stay far away from salt water because it burns them like acid, as demonstrated on this poor guy who gets tossed into the sea, then later all that's found is his clothes holding together a blackened skeleton. This all culminates in the newcomer gang leader, whose name is Rudyard Kipling, by the way, taking a huge dose of the drug, which turns him into like a superhuman zombie. He attacks Matt on a boat and breaks his arm.
Let's have a cold one!
Matt tries to kill him by grabbing him and diving off the boat. But he nearly gets drowned in the process. So George does the most badass thing imaginable for a newcomer. He sticks his hand into the salt water to help Matt get out.
What the hell was that down there? It looked really weird.
What do you mean weird? Look like every other slag to me, just plain ugly. Hey, look at this.
Cut to Matt and George at Matt's daughter's wedding. I like how they look like they have matching injuries.
George, I just want to tell you in advance I'm going to apologize for all the rotten things I'm going to do to you and say to you over the years, okay?
All right, Matthew. After all, you're only human.
They're best friends now. The end. This movie is fine. Honestly, I don't think it's interesting enough to do a film den on, which is why I just glossed over it here. James Caan and Mandy Patinkin are great in it. James Caan plays a good, lovable asshole, and Mandy Patinkin nails George's innocence and lovability. I don't know if I'm just biased because I love the TV series, but I feel like this movie has just the seed of a great idea, but it just doesn't have time to expand on it. But it deserves credit for being the one that started it all. And at least it's better than Bright. Then in 1989, the TV series came out with an all-new cast. I'll go into most of them as they show up. Most are character actors anyway, but Matt was now being played by Gary Graham, who was previously in Robot Jox. He was also about 10 years younger than James Caan, and of course he just has a completely different look from James Caan, who is just kind of an older average Joe kind of guy, where Gary Graham always kind of looked like Mick Jagger to me. George was now being played by Eric Pierpoint. He's basically a character actor. I can't think of too many other things he'd be known for, but I did spot him in an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine when I was marathoning it recently. I just like him a lot. I especially love this version of George. What it comes down to is that while I thought the original two actors were great, when I think about Matt and George, it's the version of them from the TV series that immediately comes to mind. To put it in Red Dwarf terms, it's like David Ross versus Robert Llewellyn. David Ross was great and he deserves credit for being the original Crichton, but it's really Robert Llewellyn that most people think of when they think of Crichton. So there's your intro to Alien Nation. The pilot was a TV movie, so that's gonna be a long video already, so I figured I'd start off light with this little intro video. Next up is the Alien Nation TV pilot, and then it's on to the rest of the series. See you then.
You know, a condom. Hey, you get the picture?
And that fits?
Yeah, I mean, it's made of rubber. It stretches, right?
And still it fits?